Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. What we're going to tackle today is this whole story about overlapping periods that you're not allowed to do. It seems like it sort of bowls everybody over, and it seems like the candidates are battling to wrap their heads around it. So maybe I need to demystify it a little bit more. And also, as some of you were asking me to do, is give some examples. So I'll give a proper example on how you can structure your training and experience reports so it doesn't overlap. I think for starters, we need to talk about the documents that goes with this. First one you all know is the training and experience report. That's your document where you talk about the detail of the projects that you worked on. Then you've got a thing called the TER, which is a training and experience outline. That is especially for the candidates that worked 10 years or more. It helps you to save your word count. You've only got 2,000 words to complete your TEO and TERs in. And the TEO is a bullet point document, so you don't go into detail and waste word count when it comes to explaining what you've done in your projects that you worked on. So that's important that you notice that. Then the last one is the TES, which is your training and experience summary, and that is where the problem creeps in, because this is where the candidates overlap their projects. Now, I'm going to refer to some of the documents. You're more than welcome to go and look at them, but I'm trying to do this information sharing so that you don't actually have to go and do that. The TERs, as you know by now, will have a start and end date. And that start and end date is determined by the following. It's when your report ends, when the environment has changed, when your major tasks or projects have been completed, and then also if your type of work has changed and your responsibility level or function has changed, and then also if you change employer, and if your training has been interrupted. There are cases where candidates take a sabbatical. You cannot leave that out. That must also be in your training and experience report, so it's important for you to note this. There are certain documents that you want to look at. The first one is RO3PROPC. That is the guidelines document from EXA. You can if you want to, you don't really have to. What's more important for me is there's an AN2 form. That's the information sheet form. For the engineers and for the technologists, they've got the same one. I'm actually amazed that candidates don't visit that more often because the information that's shared on there is really, really good. And you will get a lot of guidance out of it. But you know what? Don't worry about it. That's why I'm here, and that's why I'm going to help you through this. Now, in that information sheet, the AN2 form, it clearly states that you should document your experience from when you got your qualification all the way up to when you're ready for your registration in a chronological order. Now, chronological order, by definition, will become tricky when you are working on multiple projects during a specific period of time. So now how do you handle that? Now, we all know now that you can't have overlapping periods, which is a problem. Just to illustrate again, in that RO3PROPC document, the wording is as follows. It is to document his or her evidence of work experience, which must, in terms of paragraph 4.1.3, be listed in chronological order in the distinct phases of training and work experience during the applicant's career until the time of application in the training and experience summary. Now, here's an example of a training and experience summary, so you can have a look at it and see what I mean by that document. But what's more important though is how do you handle this? Now, this is important, but I think this is what you'll all be waiting for. That is give me a tangible example of this. Right. So I'm going to do that now. So let's say, as an example, if I can explain this, for example, a civil engineer with less than 10 years experience, I'm going to illustrate this by means of working at level A or level B and working on the TERs for, in this case, 52 weeks, responsibility level A to B. TER1. Now, TER1, in this period, I was exposed to and assisted with design through 2 main projects. Now, remember, this is just after qualification. Instead of adding project 1 and project 2 together, you list project 1 first. You give a name and a short description of the project that you worked on. Example, I assisted my supervisor or my team by doing the following. Using design software, by analyzing relevant guidelines applicable to the project, by designing and detail in terms of applicable SANS standards, by detailing of tender drawings, by coordination and chairing of tender briefing, taking the minutes during that time, by collating of technical queries, by familiarizing myself with contract conditions and scope. As you can see, it's level A, B. It's being exposed to the environment. I've shown the chart before what the various levels looks like. Now, this is interesting. Project number 2, simultaneously with project 1. In other words, I'm not adding it. I'm not creating another period. I'm not doing any of that because that will overlap, and you cannot overlap. So, project 2, simultaneously with project 1, you give a name and a short description of your project that you worked on. Important. Example, I conducted a field investigation to assess the site supply and demand. I undertook desktop reviews. I reviewed available alternative solutions. The responsibility level indicated in this TR is at responsibility level A and B, and the period covered in TER1 in this instance was 26 weeks. Do you see now? 2 projects covered, 26 weeks worked. No overlap, no nothing. But you made it clear. You contextualized simultaneously. Or during project 1, I was also working on project 2 and project 3. Then if you now move further, you've not taken care of project 1. Let's look at project number 2 as an example so that you know how to handle this in the future. So period 2, project number 1. Give a indication of the projects that you worked on, your designation, and then a description of the project that you worked on. Now, here's the example. I produced drawings, layouts, site plans, data sheets, and or calculation records for review by my seniors. I contributed to the overall project, detailed design report, bill of quantities, and project specifications. That's project 1. But, now remember, also worked on project 2 and 3 during this time. So, period 2, project 2. So once again, you give a description of the projects that you worked on, your designation, your role and your responsibilities, those kind of things. Give you an example. Project number 2. During this project, I contributed to and performed the design, detailing, and contract administration of the project. I chaired project meetings. I supervised the junior design engineer when he or she undertook detailed design of the solutions, etc. I checked all design calculations, drawings, and reports on this project. Project number 2 taken care of during period number 2. And then this individual also worked on a third project during that same time. So once again, name the project, what you're doing on it, description, that kind of stuff. Here's an example. I coordinated the design review process in terms of which the contractors submit their designs for review and approval by the design team based on the tendered design and proposed equipment. I reviewed the following task in the project, making up all junior engineer documents, and I monitored the project budget to ensure client scope. Look at the wording. It's I, not we. So remember that in future. The responsibility level indicated in the second TER was at level CD. Can you now see how this candidate moved from A, B, now TER2 moving to CD, and that's the trend that will be set right through to all of your TERs, so that when you get to your last TER, you will be operating on level E during that whole period of time, or multiple projects that you worked on then. Also important, the period covered in TER2 was 48 weeks, and I worked on 3 projects. Likewise, the subsequent TERs on which an applicant worked on multiple projects would continue to levels of responsibility DE. That's sort of what I was saying, is that you progressively need to, through your TERs, illustrate and move how you've gone from level A to level E, operating at level E for at least a year. I propose you do that longer. And also remember, in your TERs, you have to cover all of the 11 outcomes. Okay, so this is now an attempt for me to help you overcome this issue of overlapping TERs. So I hope this helps. The big theme here, the message that I'm trying to get across is, don't add them up. Contextualize it by saying during this time, your period 1, 2, or 3, or whatever, you worked on multiple projects, and this is the best way to take that forward. So hopefully that will help. And once again, as always, good luck with your applications and submissions.